go. So, doing my little beer school. So today we are going to start off with Amazing Punk IPA, which of course is the godfather of Brewdog beers, because as we know, this was the first beer that James and Martin brewed back in their shed in Ellon. And they took this beer to Tesco along with a few of their other prototypes. They came like first, second, third, fourth in a competition and won. So they made this beautiful thing, and I will bring up here all to do with Punk IPA. So as we can see, Punk IPA, the colour is quite light, and if you remember rightly, that is to do with the malts in the beer and how often, long they've been toasted. So if they've been toasted longer, the beer is going to be darker, and you can expect like more nuttier or chocolatey flavours, whereas Punk IPA, as we can see, is like fairly light. So on our lovely SRM beer colour chart, it's going to sit sort of around probably a 7 and 8 or a 9. So we're going to get those lovely like toasty flavours, like slight hints of bread dough in there as well. And obviously at most beer schools we would be doing this face to face, and I could just watch you drink the beer, but I'm going to be alone, so cheers. So don't forget, put your hand over the top of the glass, and when you take it off, you're going to get really beautiful hints of like grapefruit, of like starbursty flavours. It's going to be really, really hoppy and quite toasty. And that's obviously delicious, and it's got an amazing carbonic bite as well, if we remember that. So carbonic bite is essentially when you open a can of Coke and you take the first sip, you get attacked with like loads of bubbles like on your tongue, and that's essentially carbonic bite. So in beer like that, we want quite a good carbonic bite, whereas in something like Jet Black Heart, which we'll go over later, you don't want a carbonic bite because it will ruin the overall flavour. So yeah, so Punk IPA, here we go, quite low as I said on the SRM scale, and it's got all of these wonderful hops and malts in if you wanted to make a note of those. But the most important hop that is present in Punk IPA is actually Nelson Sauvin. And I've got a little world map here just so we can sort of talk about where all the different hops come from. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to try and remember where Nelson Sauvin came from, and in the meantime I'm going to have another sip of delicious beer. Okay, and your time is up. So Nelson Sauvin actually came from New Zealand. It's a New Zealand style hop, and New Zealand hops tend to have a really starbursty sort of flavour to them, and it sort of, it's set Punk IPA to one side, and it's like, wow, this is so cool. But you can get hops from all over the world. So New Zealand hops, as I said, tend to be quite starbursty, quite juicy, quite fruity. And then if we get our hops from Germany, a way I like to remember the sort of flavours is quite similar to Jägermeister. So it's going to be like that weird, like spicy sort of herbiness that's going on with those hops. Then we've obviously got English hops, and English hops tend to be quite woody, quite earthy. And next one is lovely West Coast hops, which is present in our next beer, Dead Pony Club, that I'll go over shortly. And those hops tend to be quite piney, quite resinous. And the complete opposite, obviously, on the East Coast, where a lot of East Coast hops are incredibly juicy and really fruity. So they're like more mango, more pineapple, kind of one of those where you take it, you go on the beach, and you have a few sips and you sort of get a bit pissed. But yeah, so that is our delicious Punk IPA. If you've got any questions, please do pop it in the chat box if it's available to you. If it's not, just ask me later. So Punk IPA. And next we're going to talk about Dead Pony, which is our second headliner. It's a really sessionable West Coast IPA. I can't speak today. It's a really sessionable West Coast IPA. So the history of this beer was actually, it was named after, the name was decided by our shareholders who got to vote for the new name. And names like Fake Fix and Heist were actually beaten by this original name, which was Deadhead Pony Club. But obviously we realised the name was a bit too long, so we were like, let's just shorten it. Let's just call it Dead Pony Club. Okay, now I saved a bit of punk here. So if we compare Punk IPA to Dead Pony Club, you're already going to start to see a little difference in the colour. So because the colour of the beer is darker, we're going to expect more Dead Pony to sort of sit here. which on our SRM chart, we're getting into like the 12s and 13s. So it's going to be a little toastier. We're sort of losing that bread dough flavour now. We're going to enter into more like biscuity territory, but not chocolate biscuit, obviously, because that would be quite a weird beer. And if we look here, only a couple of hops present in it, Mosaic and Simcoe, West Coast hops. And yeah, let's have a little smell and a little taste. Yeah, so incredibly piney, quite resinous. But to be honest, with Dead Pony Club, there's not that much flavour profile to it because it is incredibly sessionable. So it's not going to be something that's going to punch you in the face. It's sort of something that you can drink over long periods of time and not get really pissed. Because as you can see here, it is only 3.8%. So if someone's coming into Brewdog or any other bar on like their lunch break and wants kind of like a nice light beer, cheeky pint, then I would recommend Dead Pony Club. Excuse me, beer's already getting to me. Yeah, so with Dead Pony Club, it's actually a good beer to talk about the water that's present in it, because obviously water in beer is like 90% of what it is. So it's an incredibly important ingredient, and it's really, we need to really make sure that this is one of the beers that, one of the ingredients that we get right. So when you're brewing beer, one thing that you're not going to use is tap water. It's just, I don't care where you are in the world, that is something that is a big no-no from brewers. So what you're going to do is you're going to buy bottled water with certain like pH levels, or you can get these tablets that actually chemically alter the water coming out of your tap and it can clean it, etc. But here's a little pop quiz for you while I have another sip. Where in the world is the best place to get water for craft beer? I'll give you a moment. Little ASMR for you there. Just me drinking a beer. Okay, so in case you didn't get it, the best water in the world for craft beer is actually in Burton upon Trent. It's just got like the right amount of oh, sorry, I can't speak today. It's got like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's got the right amount of minerals. Yeah. Thank you, you helped. Yeah, it's got the right minerals. It's got the right amount of the minerals to really enhance the flavour of the beer. Same as like the best water in the world for pilsners is in Pilsen. That's what it's named after. For really like stouts, really dark beers, you're going to be looking at more Ireland. That's why the Guinness Storehouse is based up there, and why a lot of people say actually that Guinness like tastes so much better in Ireland than it does anywhere else in the world. Obviously due to travel time, but you know, you're getting at the source and like the perfect water source. And with Dead Pony, I don't actually find that much to talk about because, like I said, it is just quite a mellow sort of beer. So we're going to go over a couple of like the Brewdog stories and let's see sort of how many you remember. So I already told you about like Tesco and how they won first, second, third and fourth, but I didn't actually tell you how they got their funding. So James and Martin went to their bank, or let's call it Lloyd's. So they went to Lloyd's, they walked in, they said, hey, we've got this amazing beer, we need to take a loan out for, I think it was £10,000, maybe more. Will you give us this loan like this? And obviously they were laughed at the bank. Like the bank said, no way are we doing that for you. So instead they went to the bank across the road and they said to this bank, let's call them HSBC, hey, we've just been to Lloyd's across the road, your competitor, and they offered us £10,000 for a loan to start a business. However, if you give that to us in cash today, we will move all of our banking towards you. And because obviously they're so charismatic, the banks were like, okay. And the other bank obviously missed out on one of the best investments of their time, which was a bit silly of them. There's also been quite a number of like things they've done for the world that haven't quite worked out. You may have seen it in James Watt's 10 biggest mistakes. So one of them being the wage gap protest beer, where he actually made a beer called Pink IPA. And if you identified as a woman, then you could get the beer for 20% cheaper than a man would. And obviously people got angry because that is discrimination. So that wasn't something that they were actually allowed to do. But, you know, made a good point. selling beer for 20% cheaper to women. And do you have any more questions, or are we okay to move on? I'm going to take the silence as you are okay to move on. So next we are going to move on to Lost Lager. So Lost Lager was sort of BrewDog's first attempt at... Oh god, sorry, I'm losing my own notes because I made loads of notes for this. So James and Martin started this business, and the reason why they wanted to start brewing their own beers is because they didn't actually like what beer had become in the world. So they saw lager as a lost cause. And it was, you know, sort of ruined by mass production in the world. So this was actually their first real attempt to sort of bring what they classified as real lager back into the marketplace. And yeah, they was affectionately named in the company as Crispy Boy. Would you look at that? And Lost Lager was actually the first beer from BrewDog that was officially the world's first ever carbon negative beer. It's a big fact for you. But let's move back to the SRM scale. So if we have a look, this compared to Dead Pony this is a lot lighter. So this on the SRM scale is going to sit around like 1 or 2, which means what we can expect is incredibly like raw bread dough notes. Like you're just walking into a bakery in the morning, they haven't even started cooking the dough yet, they've just made it. That's the kind of aroma that we're going to be expecting, and the flavour as well. Now let's have a look here. So I was right, yep, so it's got a herb, a couple of hops, Pilsner, here you go, bread crusts. What I like about the malts is that they tend to sort of say what they're going to taste like, so a bit of bread crusts in there. And here we go. Yep, so for me that's almost like a little bit lemony, and it's got a really fabulous carbonic bite as well. I'm out of breath. Yeah, it's got a little hint of spiciness as well. And for the first time, no grapefruit. Because the first 2 beers, for some reason, there was an obsession with making beers have this intense grapefruit flavour, and thank God that they didn't put that into this lager, because I do not like that taste. Any questions about... Have I frozen? Ooh. Ooh. Oh no. I think I've frozen. To my one single viewer, Amy, have I actually frozen on the screen? No. Okay, so you can see me moving around, right? If I do this. That's really weird. Oh. Okay, I'm just going to end the recording for a minute. I will still be streaming, so let's end that.